Hello everyone and welcome again to this SQL for Absolute Beginners course. So we've spoke about several query clauses, and by query clauses I mean the select, the from and the where clause that are the basic clauses that one can use when coding in SQL. Now there are also three other commonly used query clauses that are super important for you to understand and to study. By mastering these 6 query clauses, you'll probably be prepared to work with the majority of the use cases that use SQL, okay? They're really important and they usually show up in most use cases. We are going to use the script for dash query clauses that you can find in the course materials. I'm going to open a new query. I already have my connection done, but if you don't forget to go to connect to database, press OK. If you need to set up the password, the system will give you a pop-up, just enter the password and you're good to go. Okay, so as we've talked about, we've seen the select clause that enables you to select something, the from clause that enables you to pick up the structure of a table or data, the select, you can also in the select, for example, create columns, and we've seen the where clause that is used to filter data coming from a table. Now, the next query clause that we are going to see is the group by clause. Now, the group by is a really important clause because it enables you to produce some statistics or some data for a specific group. What do I mean by this? Well, imagine that we have a table that contains several months for the sales of a store. You may be interested in having the average sales per month for a specific store. In that case, you need to go to the group by. When you are building a use case, everything that contains the sentence or similar to the sentence, I want to do something by something, is normally treated using a group by clause. For ourselves, we have here several information in the Sequila.film. Let's go to the Sequila.film again and check the information. There are certain things that we might want to do. For example, the rating that we have right here, which is the rating, for example, PG, basically gives the range of the ages that can watch this movie. You have the PG-13, so for people over 13 are able to see this movie. We have the rated Rs, which are the ones only for people over 18, and this rating enables you to understand what's the content of that movie. We may want to do, for example, a question, which is, does the length of the movie change according to the rating? Well, what we can do is then to have the average length by the rating. You see this sentence is key because what we want is, I want to have the average length of movies by rating. In that case, we can solve this with a group by clause. And let's see that group by example. So I'm going to select first, of course, the select keyword, which is our first query clause. Then I'm going to do the following. AVG, which is a function. Okay, AVG stands for average. And what we want to do is to build this function by a specific group. So I'm going to say AVG of the length and call this, using an alias, AVG length. Notice one important thing, we are using a function again, so function open close parentheses, and in this case this function needs to be grouped by a specific group. Okay, so what I'm going to do is now from somewhere, and in this case I'm going to say from Sequila.film. Of course, I don't need a by if I want the average for all the movies in the database. Okay, so if I want, for example, in this table to check what's the average length of all the movies in the database, I don't need to do a by column. If I do the by for the key of the movie, for the title, that would be to have the own length of the movie, unless there would be 2 movies with the same name. It doesn't make much sense. So what we can do is then to run this one without the group by, and let's see what will happen. In this case, we have the average length of all the movies in the table is around 150.27. What we've done is this clause that aggregates the information for the entire table. This is an aggregator function, okay? It's different from the functions that we've seen before, although it's called in the same way. But this only produces a single row. As you can see, that by the average function only produces a single row, doesn't apply the average function row by row, which of course would not be meaningful for this case. So there are certain functions that are applied row by row, and there are certain functions that are aggregators by themselves, such as the average. But connecting this with the example of group by, what if I want this average but obtain for each type of film, for each rating of film? In that case, I need my new query clause, group by. The group by comes after the from. In this case, I need to say by which column I want to group by. I have to add something. First, I need to add the column itself. So I'm going to add rating on my select. In this case, what I'm doing is to add the rating as the aggregator column, okay? The column that we are going to use to group by our result. And then I have to say in the group by what I want to group by. So I need to select that column and then name it in the group by. So if I run this one, select rating and the average length, what we'll have is not a single result. We'll have the different lengths by each rating. So it seems in this sample that the PG-13 has the highest average length, as you can see. Now, what will happen if I select the rating and also the length and also the average or the aggregator function? Let's see, I'm going to go here and I'm going to run this one. It doesn't make much sense. I only have here first row 115.17 and the first rating that I have because I didn't give any group by. So this result is really not the best result that I want, because if I take out this rating and then run again, I'll have that value 150.27. That's the average for the entire movies. And if I put the rating, it seems odd, right? Because I have the rating PG, it seems that the rating PG has this average length, but it's not, because this is just the first rating that we get. So be really mindful of adding your group by clause, because only with the group by clause it makes sense for us to do these aggregator functions such as average, max, or minimum, as an example, group by a specific column. Okay, I'm going to run the group by again here, and you will see now it makes much more sense. The real average length of the PG movies is 112 minutes, okay, not the 150 that we were seeing. That's the global of all the movies. That's why the group by is crucial in this example. There is also another thing that people commonly do in the group by. I'm going to copy this one, put it down here, which is instead of naming the column in the group by, they just give numbers. So if I group by 1, this means that I'm grouping by the first column that's not in the aggregator function. Okay, in this case I have rating and I put here group by 1. This is going to pick up the first column that we have right here. So if I run this one, I'll have exactly the same result. Okay, this is, of course, it depends. People tend to use this one because it's easier to write. It may be a bit harder to understand because it's easier to see the columns that are being grouped by instead of having 1, 2, 3 something. Now if I want to group by multiple columns, I'm going to pick up this one, and if I want to group by multiple columns, I can just do a comma and add the new column to group by. For example, I may want, and let me return to the Sequila film to see another column that would make sense. I may want to group by this rental duration, for example. Let's check rental duration, so I can add here group by rating and rental duration. Now I can run this and we will see that we have, for example, several different PGs, as you can see here, PG, PG, and another PG, and this is giving me different average lengths by each rating. But now I have the ratings repeated. Why is that? Because I'm grouping by this column, but I'm not adding this column to the select. To make more sense, I need to add the rental duration to the select statement, and now I'll have rating, rental duration, and average length. If I omit the rental duration here from the select, it's as if I'm hiding this column from the select. Although the calculation itself is being done because the group by is done before outputting the result. So the group by calculation is done underneath in this table, although it's not shown to you as a user. That would be a bit hard to understand because you would not know which rating, for example, the different G's that we have here, which rental duration they were referring to. If I take out this one just to see it again, there you go. I just have G, 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 but we don't know which rental duration this is supposed to represent. So don't forget, add the column that you need here, and now in the select you have the rental duration in the end. this is a multiple group by with 2 columns. So more functions to use group by. I'm going to pick up this one, the group by only with the rating. I can do, for example, max, let me just change here, max of the length. This will give me exactly the maximum minutes of each type of movie or of each movie rating. Okay, we can also use the mean is another example. The mean will give me the minimum minutes or the minimum length of each type of movie, each movie rating, and so on. These are important aggregator functions. If you take out the group by, don't forget you'll get the average, the maximum, or the minimum for the entire table. Okay, we'll have plenty of opportunities to use group by throughout the course. We'll also have some exercises for you to train this concept of group by. Just remember that group by is used to obtain some result by a specific dimension. When I mean dimension, I mean some specific column that you want to visualize the result by. You'll hear people commonly refer to this as dimensions. Okay, so if I want to group by rating, I'm grouping my data by the dimension rating, and I'm visualizing some data by that dimension. In this case, the rating of the movie. I hope this was explicit on how you can use group by to do multiple things here in SQL. Again, we'll have plenty of opportunity to work with group by throughout the course. Just make sure that you've practiced this concept because it's really important, and this is one of the query clauses that you'll probably use a lot when you work with SQL. Next, we are going to work with another concept which is similar to the where concept, but it's the having concept. And I'll see you in the next lecture.